Now to a heartbreaking story from overseas. We are learning that a 20-year-old American citizen born and raised in Tampa, Florida, was brutally beaten to death by Israeli settlers while visiting his family in the occupied West Bank. His name was Saifullah Musallat. A group of settlers blocked an ambulance from reaching him for about 3 hours, according to his family. After the settlers cleared, his brother carried him to an ambulance, but he tragically died before getting to the hospital. Another man was also killed in the same attack. And we must warn you that some of what you're about to see may be hard to watch. Here you can see Saif's lifeless body covered with a Palestinian flag during the funeral procession while mourners grieve nearby. The State Department said it is aware of reports of the death of a U.S. citizen in the West Bank, but then declined to comment further, saying, quote, out of respect for the privacy of the family and loved ones. Joining us now to discuss this is Afaf Nasher, Executive Director at the Council on American Islamic Relations here in New York. Afaf, thank you so much for joining us. First, I just want to get your reaction to this tragic and senseless killing. What do you know about it? What is an organization like CAIR calling on from the American government to do in response?
First reactions is obviously multifold. There is this somber reality setting in for this another layer of trauma that the community is facing, that certainly his family is facing. And so first and foremost, we give our condolences to everyone, the family members. He was a son, a beloved son. He was both loved and loving person. He was a brother. He was a community member. And he was 17 years old, an American who was just at the prime of his life, has been slaughtered. So that's first and foremost reaction. The second reaction is anger, because it's yet another example of a betrayal from our American government, who supposedly says that America is first, who supposedly values American lives. But then we see again and again that Americans are consistently massacred with impunity when it's at the hand of Israelis.
Were you surprised by the tepid response from the State Department, and that they say that response is out of respect for his family? Do you buy that?
I don't buy it. It's a bunch of crap. It's nothing but nonsense. And I don't buy it for several reasons. First and foremost, this is not the first American that's been killed by Israelis, right? We had a 14-year-old, Ahmad Rabia, who was killed earlier this year. We had Muhammad, who was also killed, 17 years old, another American killed with impunity. We had Tawfiq Abdul-Jabir, also killed, 17 years old. We're seeing these lifeless bodies, and whether we're talking about youth or journalists that are Americans like Shireen Abu Akleh, or even back in the day, I remember in 2003, remember Rachel Corrie, who was literally bulldozed to death in those days, back in the early 2000s. She was an American. And again, with impunity, no justice or recourse for her or for the families. And so I'm not surprised by it at all. I think, again, that this is a long line of Americans putting Israeli interests above American interests, even when it's to the point of blood being spilled onto the soil of American lives. That entire America First line, the entire stories that we would watch in the movies about American heroes coming in and saving other Americans, that's all for the campaign trail and for Hollywood. None of it rings true.
I actually wanted to ask you about that America First slogan and why it doesn't apply here, right? I mean, obviously a life is a life and is valuable whether or not the person who lost it was an American citizen or not. But Trump has claimed that he's looking out for U.S. interests here in the United States and around the world. Why does it not apply?
It doesn't apply because they're in Palestine, and because they have the audacity to say that Palestine lives also matter like other lives. And it's in part because they're Arab, in part because they're Palestinian Americans. But again, even allies to the cause have been slaughtered there and here. People disappearing. We see the immigration policies that have been weaponized. We see a whole host of systemic discrimination against anyone who says anything to the validity of the existence of the Palestinian people. So this is just a part of that.
There is a kind of sense that, oh, these are settlers, Israeli settlers that are doing this. Others see this as part of a broader state-sanctioned policy of allowing settlers to act with impunity. The Israeli government is obviously expanding and building illegal settlements, specifically this government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Talk to us about that correlation between how the Israeli government, by allowing these sanctions and by sanctioning these settlements, basically paves the way for this type of violence, oftentimes with American taxpayer money and weapons?
So great question. First, the report, everyone who is watching this program has to understand that this was Palestinian land, recognized Palestinian occupied territory. In other words, our brother was there legally. He was permitted to be there. He could be there. This was his family's and his community's land. It was the settlers that are illegally encroaching upon that land. Secondly, we have to realize that the United Nations has cited over 1,860 incidents in the West Bank alone, just from October 2023, of violence being perpetrated by settlers onto the Palestinians, again, Palestinians rightfully on their land. And what happens during these rampages? You see homes being destroyed and burnt to the ground. You see farmlands being destroyed. You see, obviously, assaults and life being lost. So this is absolutely sanctioned. And we even know that some of these settlers have been given weapons by the Israeli government themselves. And we know that oftentimes, even when reports are coming in, you don't see the occupied forces coming in to assist. In fact, sometimes they're perpetrators themselves. So is this sanctioned by the Israeli government? 100%. They're not only turning a blind eye, but oftentimes partaking in the massacre.
Afaf, Nasher, thank you so much for joining us. I know we're going to continue following this story and investigation.